Alrighty, it's time for the fifth superhero movie of the year, The Flash. This has been hyped as one of the best comic book superhero movies of all time by everyone who's seen it, and I'm going to be honest, we are going to go into a lot of definitions, but I do think that this is the best comic book movie, as in the best movie that feels like it was a comic book that went through one edit and is way overstuffed with way too much stuff. Like, it's got just too much going on at times. The story is simple. The Flash goes back in time to save his mother, and in doing so, he messes up the timeline. And honestly, if you want to see a movie where the Flash goes back in time and saves his mom, just go on Max, look up Flashpoint Paradox, and watch that, as that is a very well told rendition of the Flashpoint story. But one thing I do have to give this movie props is that they do not just straight up copy the Flashpoint Paradox, which is something I was a tad scared of because I'm like, they're not going to do it better than that. But it's good to see their own spin on the story. Unfortunately, their own spin on the story is a very slow first two-thirds to a way too chaotic last third. So the story is just kind of messy, just the whole way through. But it's like interesting, but there are much better versions of this tale around. So that's a hot pocket score for the story. The cinematics, this is where we get a little spicy. The cinematic experience for this, which is what I believe Tom Cruise said this movie was, like one of the best cinematic experiences he has seen. And I'm gonna be honest, it was very good cinematically. I really enjoyed what they did with the super speed, specifically on when the Flash is going fast. I didn't mind those visual effects because, like, he's going fast, everyone has to do it differently, and I like the way they did it personally. It was better than just adding lightning bolts to the back of him running, although there are moments where the special effects are, like, PlayStation 2-esque, and this is the only time I have noticed really bad special effects. Like, when Barry is traveling back in time, it is actually not the best. And this is like one of the few times I'll say that, but then there are moments where it's really phenomenal. It does pick up and get better visually in the final act, but a good chunk of when he's time traveling is pretty bad. And that's, I guess, on purpose from what I'm hearing, but not worthwhile. Music is pretty solid. I love the Batman score coming on every time Michael Keaton is on screen doing action, which I highly doubt it was actually Michael Keaton, but it was alright. It was fun. It was enjoyable. The visual effects were entertaining enough. I do have to say, the baby stuff was kind of weird. I know that a lot of that is leaked on Twitter, which is why I don't even mind saying that in this review. Because if you've been on Twitter, you've probably seen it, and if you're watching this review, you've probably either seen the movie or seen the bullshit on Twitter. But yeah, cinematics, I'll give it a hand grenade score because it was explosive, it was engaging. Directing, I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't that bad. It was pretty good. It really didn't feel like the issue with the movie was based off of the directing, as it was really solidly directed. Although, I have to say, this had some of the most satisfying Batman action I have seen. The Batman does really good Batman action, but this one has, like, Batman the Animated Series type Batman action, and I love that. It felt like I was playing the Arkham games at one point, like watching someone play the Arkham games. It was that like interesting with like the gadget combos that is used in some action sequences, which I think was directing, which now I'm kind of like, okay, this guy can direct the Batman movie now. I don't mind, which is one of my biggest fears going into this film and everything I've heard. But yeah, he directed some pretty good Batman action. I think a lot of people will agree with that. And so I'll give his directing actually a solid hand grenade score. That was pretty solid. Now let's talk about the acting, which is something that I have a lot to talk about. The acting, in my opinion, was not the best. I truly don't think it was the actors' faults, but I do believe that they should not have had Ezra Miller in a double role, because that was just too much Ezra Miller, and the way he has such such a distinguished voice that it's tough to differentiate, and thus making one Flash sound way too annoying. And the character of the Flash was the least interesting character in the Flash movie. And it's not because the villain was interesting. I'm not going to say it's Ezra Miller's fault, but it may be because they took it upon themselves to do a double role, or the studio did. I would love to see a new Flash. I think if they had two different Flash actors for this film, a younger, like Ezra Miller lookalike, I think it would have been better. So the whole constraint isn't off of Ezra. Michael Keaton is alright, and Sasha Calle is pretty solid. Everyone else is just sort of there. It's alright. Acting is nothing spectacular, but I don't think it was because of the actors. I think it was because of the content that they were given. Because I think the screenwriters, if I'm correct, I think I read that it was Jonathan Francis Daly and John Goldstein. I think they were too busy with Dungeons and Dragons at that point that they were like, yeah, let's do this instead. But it was alright. I'll give a solid Hot Pocket score there. Okay, expectations and experience time. Don't go into this movie with super high expectations, because you will be disappointed. This is not the best superhero movie ever. This is not the best comic book movie ever. As a matter of fact, this isn't even the best superhero movie of June. Like, I truly think this movie should have been pushed back or released earlier, because this just got absolutely boned by the fact that Spider-Verse came out 2 weeks before it. And it tackles a lot of similar issues, except had insanely good writing, because the team behind Spider-Verse was consistent throughout. As a matter of fact, from what I read, Lord and Miller were targeted to direct this Flash movie, and I think it would have been better for it, but that's just because Lord and Miller go into everything with a plan, just like James Gunn does, and you can tell that that these last two DC films are before the Gunn era. Am I excited for the future? Sort of. I still don't know what exactly happened. In this film, there were so many cameos. My best comparison for this film is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But unlike in the Multiverse of Madness, they didn't show off all their cameos in the trailers, which left a lot of people like upset with Multiverse. I was like, okay, it's alright movie. It's a pretty good Sam Raimi movie if you ask me. But this one actually had what everyone expected Multiverse of Madness to have. But the expectations were set differently due to the fact that too many people called this the best movie ever. Or the best superhero movie ever, I'm sorry. And that really just ruined it for them. And some of the CGI choices as well. A lot of my friends were very mixed on this film, but we all came to the same conclusion that the Flash was just really fucking annoying for a good chunk of the runtime, and that really hurt this film. I do have to say, though, some of these cameos were just like, I'm just going to say they're there. I'm not going to say who they are or what they are. But I'm going to be honest, I was really shocked when Tony Stark showed up and just said, it's Morbin time. Like, I didn't expect that to happen. I mean, shit. Sorry about that. Spoiler alert, I guess. But yeah, that's all I have to say. That was a Hot Pocket, certified Hot Pocket movie, Hot Pocket experience, mostly because it got a little cold. It was a little cold at the beginning, but then it did heat up at the end. The ending really kind of saved this movie, in my opinion. But yeah, leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment down below if you're planning on checking out The Flash, or if you have seen it, and tell me that I'm completely wrong and this movie sucked. I don't care. I have my opinions, you have yours. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and other than that, I'll leave you guys to it.